We're back with the one and only Herman Peanut Johnson, and we've been talking all things music, and in specific, we were talking about his Berkeley days. So, Peanut, what would you say is the impact Berkeley has had on your career looking back from this vantage point that you're at right now?
You know what? I would probably say the versatility of the school itself. I mean, it's just so much when I was there, it was just so much variety there, like from just walking the halls to meet people and everything like that. It was just so much variety there that impacted the way, I approach just music in general. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So I would say that, man. I mean, it just definitely helped me grow in other areas that I probably wouldn't have grown in if I didn't go. If I was scared of the cold, I probably wouldn't have been able to grow in those ways, man. You know?
Right, right. Yeah, Boston's a different type of cold than Atlanta's cold, right?
Oh my God, they got a whole nother season called Blizzard.
What
Like I'll
was-
never, I'll never forget. We was going somewhere. I think we was going to church or something like that. And one of the deacons or deaconess or something like that was explaining to us as freshmen, like, hey, y'all from the country or whatever, y'all from the South. Okay, well, y'all enjoying it so far. We're like, yeah, this is cool. It's not as cold as we thought it was gonna be. And this was probably maybe around like December or something like that. And they said, yeah, well, wait till blizzard season comes. And we were like, what? Now I only know 4 seasons.
right, that's a thing.
You know,
Okay.
yeah, they got 5 seasons up there. But no, the adjustment was crazy. It was cool, but uh, yeah, yeah, definitely what Berkeley had to offer me was way more than I anticipated. Because, like I said, originally I was not even interested in going,
Hmm.
but it grew on me quick. It grew on me like real quick, and next thing I knew, I was sucked in. I was sucked in. I was learning things, unconsciously. Didn't even realize I was picking up things just from my peers. And that's one thing I'll say too. I think, and I probably said it already, but I think I learned more from my peers than my actual teachers.
Hmm.
It was such an environment that it's almost like you can't help but learn from your surroundings. You know what I mean? It is it almost didn't feel like school sometimes. It definitely felt like school around midterms and finals and all that.
I'm
But
sure.
man, oh my God. But in between all of those different moments there, it was like it almost didn't feel like school. It just felt like, just a fun house of just music and musicians. And some of those guys, I mean, they'll just call you, hey man, we're playing at this club tonight. You should come through. Come through, sit in, same type thing. I mean, it's a musical town. So I mean, next thing you know, you might be getting called to do a gig with the band that's starting up or subbing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It was
Right,
just
right.
that kind of environment where like I ended up playing in a alternative band. I never thought that I would be playing rock and everything like that, but I ended up playing in an alternative band, and then I ended up playing with a funk band. Um, this drummer named Keith Harris, who's incredible, left-handed drummer. He's a drummer and MD for Black Eyed Peas and Will I Am, and
Okay.
he was playing at that time. Um, he was playing. I forgot the name of the funk band that he was with, but I happened to just be around, and coming to see him play, and just hey, I'm new on the block from North Carolina, I go to Berkeley, da da da, da. And it's almost like just that camaraderie of like, oh, okay, cool, you go to Berkeley, yeah, 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 come on, come on through, whatever. He happens to play keys as well, so we kind of gravitated towards each other. And when he wasn't able to make it, because he may have been with Black Eyed Peas or whatever, he would call me to come and sub with his band. And eventually he was just gone with Black Eyed Peas.
Okay.
And I ended up being the drummer for that band for the time being or whatever. And I eventually had a reggae band. I was with a reggae band, and that was just by happen chance. So it was just so much variety there at the school where, I mean, you was just learning and picking up things from literally your peers more than your teachers, in my opinion and my experience. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure others had, other experiences or whatever, depending on what instrument or, singer or anything like that. But from my own personal experience, it was like I definitely learned more from my peers than my teachers. You know what I mean? And a lot of that stuff I took with me and I still use to this day. In everything that I do, I would think like, okay, well, how would David approach this? This guy named David Hunter, incredible keyboard player and singer as well, writer as well. But I would think about like how would David approach this? How would he, keyboard wise, how would he approach this? And a lot of us were like that. Day, we were there together, and who else? Of course, John, and I'm trying to think of who else might have been. Um, Danny McClain, he was there with us as well. So there's quite a few of us that came down to Atlanta. But I will say, I spearheaded that though.
Oh, really? Okay.
They wasn't down here. Like none of them was down here. I was like, everybody else was like moving to like New York or LA or like maybe Houston, but it was like LA or New York.
Yeah. This
That's
early 2000s, right? So it was still
yeah.
popping, the place to be at that time, right?
Yeah, it was LA or New York. That's where people were going. But me, I was like, nah, when I leave, I gotta go to Atlanta. And it was always that. It was always that. It was like, okay, cool. When I'm leaving North Carolina, I'm graduating, I'm going to Boston. But when I get done with Boston, I gotta be in Atlanta. I don't know why, but I was like, I gotta be in Atlanta.
You mentioned that you met Ronnie Garrett
Right.
in high school days, and then you guys stayed in contact as well. And I know that he's a collaborator of yours. So talk to me about that. When you did transition to Atlanta, you reconnected with Ronnie, I assume, and talk to me about how things developed between you and him musically.
So the way that happened was, I was still at school, I would, like I said before, I would be making tracks in the learning center and everything like that. And when I would get done with like a full CD of like 19 or 20 songs, most of them I think is 20 songs, no less than 19. But I would mail him a CD, an actual like physical CD, because it wasn't, I was just sending some MP3s at the time. That wouldn't happen. Meanwhile, across the bridge, they was working on Facebook and Napster and all that stuff at Harvard, across the bridge. But at that time, I was still sending physical CD copies. So I would send stuff to him to listen to. You know what I'm saying? To just, basically just put the fillers out there and just let them know, hey, look, I'm at Berkeley. Like I'm here. I'm studying music. I want to move to Atlanta. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing when I get there, but I know that's where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? Because at the same time, ATL is not necessarily that far away from Walnut Creek. I could still hop on I-85 and just take that straight on up to my Butler exit. Unlike Boston, that's not a car ride. That's a flight. You know what I'm saying? New York, that's not a car ride. It's a flight. LA, that's definitely not a car ride. It's a flight. So ATL just seemed like it would fit me better. Because I looked at it like, okay, especially after being in Boston for a while, getting a real life city experience. You know what I mean? Not like, okay, has a city vibe to it, but it's an actual city with a lot of pride in it. So getting the real city experience and coming down to ATL, it was almost like a mixture of country and city for me. So I knew I'm like, I want to be in Atlanta, you know.
Yeah.
So I would send music and everything to Ron, and he would play stuff for different people and everything like that, kind of put fillers out and everything like that. And responses that he was getting was like, "Yo, who is this kid? Wow, like, hey, where's he at now? He's at Berkeley. Oh, okay." So after a while, I ended up coming to visit a couple of times, you know, um, just to fill it out because I never really, yeah, I never really had been to Atlanta without like my dad. My dad used to come down to Atlanta to go to the Bronner Brothers show, almost like every year or something like that.
Okay.
And so that was my experience of Atlanta, that and Six Flags Over Georgia.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
those are my experiences as far as Atlanta is concerned. So I never really experienced Atlanta in a musical sense. You know what I mean?
Were
So
you aware of the LaFace era? Like before you came, I mean, we all know LaFace by
nope.
name and even the music, of course, even if you didn't know the label. But were you aware that that happened late 80s, 90s, prior to the 2000s when we were, coming through high school, college?
I had no idea. And like I said before, of course I wouldn't have any idea because I wasn't able to listen to those kinds of artists. So I didn't know about a Babyface. I didn't know about LaFace Records. I didn't know about, Tony Braxton and TLC. Like I only heard of these people through, friends of mine in middle school, friends of mine in high school until I was able to like, kind of get my own little CD player type thing and listen to, sneak and listen to stuff on my own. So
Right.
I didn't know the musical history of ATL
Hmm.
at that time until I connected with Ron. And like I said, I would come down every now and again and visit, and like he would take me around to different spots. And the first spot that he ever took me to was Crossover Entertainment, and I was amazed.
Hmm.
I was just like, oh my god. And the funny thing is, Billy, he remembers me from that. That I was a skinny kid, visiting from Boston. Everybody at that time thought that I was from Boston,
Hmm.
not realizing that I just went to school up there, But um, he would take me around to different places, and just to kind of show me like, okay, this is the musical side,
Hmm.
of what you want to be involved in, what you want to get into. This is that.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
Billy's not a bad person to meet on one of your first trips to the city, is it?
At all. And Billy's awesome, man. Billy's awesome, man.
He's a great guy.
Man, yeah, at the heart, man. You know what I mean? And just he's been genuine through and through from day one,
Hmm.
from day one, man. And so I think I came down here maybe like 2 or 3 times, and Ron was working on some stuff, some TV stuff at the time, and I remember I remember he told me, he was like, it's some things on the table with Star Search at the time. And I was still at school, and we started just working on like musical things for Star Search. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is dope. This is crazy. And I remember saying to myself, and I told John, I said, hey man, and John is like my brother. That's like, we like freaking frat, man. And I told him, I said, hey dog, hey man, I might be going to the league soon. You know, I might be making that jump. And he was like, man, for real. And that's, like I said before, it's almost like, like that's like a badge of honor when
Hmm.
it's like you didn't necessarily get your degree or diploma from Berkeley, but you were there long enough to not only experience it, but for other people to experience you as well.
Right.
So when I told him, I said, "Yeah, man, I think I might be making that jump." He was like, "Man, you tell your parents yet what they say?" And I was like, "Nah, I ain't even thought that far yet." So I knew at some point in time I had to like share with my mom and dad and let them know, hey, I think I want to, I think I want to take a chance. I took a chance at leaving North Carolina and going to Boston. and experience in Berkeley and got all that. And I remember telling them, hey, I think I just want to step out there on faith, you know. And I remember Ron telling me, he was like, yeah, man. So just whenever you're ready, he was like, I'm building you a studio, man. You know, when you get down here, um, you know, you'll be able to stay with me. You can stay with me, you know, until you get yourself together or whatever. And, you know, we can work on all this TV stuff together. And, you know, he said, just, you know, you take your time, you think about it, and, you know, just let me know when you're ready. And the crazy thing is like, I mean, like I said, I didn't move until February of '04. And uh like the latter part of '03, I was getting myself together mentally, like preparing, you know,
Okay.
to like make that move, the real move, like to uproot, you know, the life that I basically started cultivating in Boston and moving it to Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? And um I remember I called F and told him like, hey man, this is what I want to do, man. Like I think I'm gonna go ahead on and make that move from Boston, you know, to Atlanta, man. Make that jump or whatever. And the craziest thing is, he was like, "Cool. Like, when are you thinking about moving?" And I said, "You know what? Next semester. You know, and next semester would be, you know, after the new year. You know."
Right.
So I was like, "Yeah, next semester." He was like, "Okay, okay." He was like, "You ready? You ready for that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm ready. You know, I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm like, man, as soon as I get down, I'm gonna be working on music for Star Search and like, you know, Your Mama Don't Dance and you know some of these other TV shows. I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is great. So I remember this guy named Brent Flowers. He's AKA Big Bully. That's what we call him, Big Bully. And you know, at the time he was an NBA agent. He was actually an agent for Lawrence Taylor and the NBA, um, James Posey and Nick Van Exel, Antonio McDyess. So he was like that guy. You know what I mean? And I had never met Brent before, but um, Brent was Ron's business partner at the time, business partner at the time, business partner at the time. And the craziest thing happened when I got a phone call from Brent. Now I had heard of Brent. I think we had talked on the phone and everything like that. And you know, Ron kind of introduced us, uh, you know, via phone conversation or something like that. But I remember getting a phone call um, from Brent, and he was like, "How much money do you need? How much money do you need to, you know, to move your stuff, you know, from Boston or whatever to Atlanta? Like, what do you need?"
Okay.
And I was like, uh, "Okay, what is what I need? Da 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 da." You know, so I can, you know, pack everything up, U-Haul, all that stuff. He was like, "Okay, cool. So you're gonna get called from my accountant a couple days, and just call me when you get it." And I was like, uh, "Okay." You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, meanwhile, back in Creedmoor, I didn't know F was making plans to fly up to Boston and help me drive from Boston to Atlanta. So
Wow.
he flew up to Boston, you know, and helped me pack stuff up into the U-Haul truck and everything like that. And like he basically drove. Like I drove a little bit. I think I got to like New York.
Boston to New York.
And that ain't nothing but like 3 hours.
Yeah,
You
that's
know
what
what
I
I'm saying?
said. You
From
did all of
Boston to New
3 hours
York.
of the
Right.
18 hours.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So I got to New York and I remember him looking at me while I was driving. And he was like, "You good? You look a little sleepy." I was like, "No, no, no, I'm good. I'm good." And I remember he was like, "Man, pull over, man." So we pulled over and he basically took over. You know, I feel like he drove from New York to Atlanta. Like, you know what I'm saying? Drove us from New York to Atlanta. I don't know if I picked up somewhere in the end, maybe from Charlotte on down. I don't know, but I know he drove majority
I'm
of
putting
the
all my
trip.
money on F on this one. I'm putting all my
Look,
money.
Me too. Me too. You know. So I remember he drove me down, man, and I ended up moving in with Ron, and I stayed with Ron for about a good year and some change actually. I want to say maybe about a year and a half. I think I stayed with Ron, and the way he had it set up, it was perfect for me because it was like my room was downstairs. Like I had the whole downstairs level. Like it was crazy. It was the office that was down there, the studio was down there, and then it was like, I called it the movie room because it was just a huge TV screen down there with the plush, comfortable couches. So I had the whole bottom to myself. So I rarely like came upstairs because either I was, in front of the computer or sleep. And majority of the time I wasn't going to sleep till like 8, 9 in the morning from just working on stuff in the studio, just
Hmm.
constantly working on tracks, constantly, especially when it was um Star Search season. And this is before AI took over. AI came in and just took over everything. They just took it to the next level, and Star Search eventually just tainted. It
Yeah,
just it tanked. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
American Idol, AI, American Idol for those listening.
yeah, yeah. So it was like it you know Star Search went downhill after that. You know what I mean? But it was some more TV shows that we were working on, that we had the opportunity to work on. I wanted, what was it? Your Mama Don't Dance, and Missy Elliott's Road to Stardom, the Gong Show. It was a couple more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but we were doing music for those as well. You know, so during that time, it was like, okay, cool, we're doing Star Search. Then it was like we got hit with the challenge of Star Search was gone. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It was like, okay, well, now what? We gotta figure something out, because we was already teamed up. It was like we just gotta figure something out. We gotta grind this out. And even matter of fact, during that time is one thing that I almost forgot. He took me over to Daryl Simmons' house, and this is when I started learning about LaFace and
Mhm.
who Babyface really was, who L.A. Reid really was. And I remember we went over there and we talked for a little while and everything like that. And I was just tripped out, amazed again, like, man, okay, this the real Daryl Simmons. Oh, this is crazy.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I remember before we were leaving, it was something shiny that caught my eye on the mantle over the fireplace. And I looked, and there was this little horn, little golden horn looking thing. And I looked, and I was like, I know that ain't what I think it is. I know that's not what I think it is. And they were like, what? And I just walked over there, and I was like, so this is what a Grammy looks like. I said, oh my God. So this is what it looks like. And I was like, yo, is it cool? I just want to touch it. I want to know, I want to see something here. I want to see what it feels like to hold this. And I picked up that Grammy, man, and I was just like, yo, it had some weight to it too. I said, oh, okay. Oh, this the real one. This the real one. So in my mind, I said, okay, cool. Yeah, I gotta do something. We gotta work. I want one of these for myself.
Right. Right.
So it sparked something in me to just keep grinding. Even though Star Search didn't do what we thought it was gonna do because of AI or whatever, it was like, okay, let's just keep grinding. Just keep
Mhm.
grinding. We gotta keep working. Like, it was something that Ron used to always say. He was like, hey man, when there's nothing else to do, work.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? When there's nothing else left to do, work.
Yeah.
Get it done. Just whatever it is, you're working towards a goal. Still at this time, Ron was playing with Richard Elliott. saxophone player, smooth jazz saxophone player.
Hmm.
Now, mind you, Ron didn't even know I played drums. He thought that I was just a keyboard player.
Really?
Ironically, ironically,
Really?
ironically, Ron never knew that I played drums.
Get out of here.
He literally thought that I was a keyboard player and I was a producer. That's
Is
all he
that
had.
because now, based on you sending tracks, I mean, you could be playing any, unless you hadn't had this conversation, you were playing everything on the tracks that you were submitting. So were
No,
you playing any live drums on any of the let's call them demos or the volumes that you were sending down, or
well,
was that all programmed?
it was all programmed drums.
Okay.
Nothing was live.
So there's no
Not
reason to assume that you play drums unless he's seen you play them at this point.
well, yeah, technically, because at first he thought some of those tracks that I was sending, he thought it was live drums until I told him that nah, I programmed those. And that's what really took him out. Like, wait, what? What do you mean you programmed it? And I said, nah, that's all keyboards. I didn't actually sit in front of a kit and play these drums. These are sounds that I made and sampled or whatever and created my own kit at that time. And those are programmed drums. He was like, whoa. So when I came down, his impression was, and my dad too. My dad was telling him, hey, yeah, I mean, Herm can play some drums now.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
That's why you're at Berkeley in the first place,
That's
right?
why I was at Berkeley, right?
Mhm.
So Ron, he didn't, he was just like, okay, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, he plays drums. It was that kind of thing, because people always say more than what they actually can do. Sometimes I'm not gonna say everybody, but there are some people that say they can do this, say they can do that, all this other stuff, and they can only do like this much of it.
Mhm.
But because they do this much of it, they say, yeah, I do all this.
They lead with that, right?
Exactly. Technically, no, stop, cut it out.
Mhm.
You know, but it wasn't until like my dad came down. I want to say maybe after I was here for like a couple of days or something like that. My dad came down and the three of us kind of hung out and everything like that. We went to La Paria and got some tacos and burritos and all that good stuff. And my dad just wanted to meet Ron and get a feel for him and everything like that. And because obviously he's like, well, my son's gonna be, staying with you. I need to,
Sure. Absolutely.
put my eyes on you and just make sure that my son is in good hands type thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So after, obviously my dad gave his blessing and everything like that, it was one of those situations where eventually I was like, well, let me just unpack my drums, man, because I need to practice. So uh, in the studio, the vocal booth was just large enough to fit my whole entire kit. So it was a fairly large vocal booth. So I was able to fit my whole entire kit in there, and I just basically turned that room into my practice room because it literally felt like the practice rooms at Berkeley. You know what I mean? Like I was able to close the door. It was soundproofed and everything like that, and I was like, oh, this is great. I feel like I'm back in Boston.
Mhm.
I'm back at Berkeley right now. This feels great. So it wasn't until I was playing, just practicing some stuff that I would normally practice to in my practice playlist or whatever. And I remember him saying, "Yo, man, wait a minute. So are you a drummer that plays keys, or are you a keyboard player that knows how to play drums?" And I told him, I said, "Well, my first instrument is drums. That's my first instrument. That's my first love. I picked up keys along the way, and that messed him up. It blew his mind, and he was just like, okay, I got to figure this out." And what he told me then, he was like, man, he said, with your talent and my wisdom and my connections, he said, man, this tag team right here is about to take over. And I was like, let's go,
Mhm.
let's do it, let's
Right.
go. And so back to Richard Elliott, he after realizing that I'm actually a drummer, called Richard and was like, look, got this kid, I think I was probably, I may have been, I may have been 21, like just turning 21, maybe something like that, 21, 22 ish. And, Richard came down. I think he came from like like San Diego or something like that. He came from the West, came from Cali, and there was a show uh, here in Atlanta. I think it was the Atlanta Jazz Fest or something like that, and he was slated to play. And um, I think I think he was slated to play in like a couple of weeks or whatever. And he had like a 45-minute set or something like that. So Richard came over to the house, and meanwhile, Ron had been feeding me Richard's stuff because he was like, "Look, I'm gonna get you on this gig. I want you to learn this music. I want you to, just get into it. So he was like, "I'm gonna get Richard over here, and I just want you to play for him. I want you to play his music for him." you know. And I was like, okay, cool. So when Richard got there, came down to the basement, I had my kit set up in there and everything like that. And I met him, great guy and everything. And he was like, okay, let me hear what you got. I was like, cool. And I put at the time I didn't have ears. I had like headphones, so I put my headphones on and I got in there and just started playing, playing, playing to the tracks that he had.
Were you nervous?
The funny thing is, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't nervous because I had just been literally I had been Richard Elliott out. You know what I'm saying? That's all I've been listening to just like really study the 45 minutes or whatever that he had. So it wasn't like a lot of songs. I could zoom in and drill on like I think it was maybe like 9 or 10 songs, something like that. But I could drill those songs. And so I had the confidence enough that I wasn't nervous. Because at the time, like I didn't know who Richard Elliott was. I wasn't into smooth jazz. I didn't know who Will Downing was. I didn't know who Peter White was. I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know that Richard Elliott was a big deal in the smooth jazz arena. I had no idea, So I was just like, man, I just want to be able to play drums again because I went from playing almost every weekend in Boston, to doing straight production in Atlanta. I hadn't played anywhere. I wasn't with a band or anything like that. So the nervousness wasn't there. It was just like the eagerness was more there than the nervousness, because I was like, man, I just want to be able to play again. And he dug what I was doing and everything like that. And he was like, cool, you want to do this show in Atlanta? I mean, you're already here. So I was like, cool, yeah. And it was at Centennial Park. I don't know nothing about this stuff yet. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm used to playing like little clubs and everything like that in Boston. So I didn't know that Atlanta Jazz Fest was like a big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And in Centennial Park, I didn't know it was a big deal like that until I showed up and I was like, yo, okay. This is this is what's up. So we did the show, and I think from then on, it was kind of like, well, who's that kid? Who's that kid with Richard? Like, who is that kid? And it kind of just got around or whatever. And I don't know, but that's he's with Ronnie. Da, 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 da. And Ron already had this name already. You know what I'm saying? Ronnie Garrett, and whoever he's putting on, it is kind of like it's just a stamp of approval, I guess. You know what I mean? And the fact that he believed in me, like it wasn't hard for anybody else to, believe as well. You know what I mean? So the Richard Elliott thing kind of took over. And at the time I was actually just I was just subbing. I was actually subbing at the time because I forgot his name, but the keyboard player, Ron Hart, I think that's his name. But his brother was the drummer, but he wasn't able to make that particular gig in Atlanta. So I was able to do it, And eventually I subbed again, and then eventually I wasn't subbing no more. Eventually I was just out. I was getting the schedule like, okay, well, we're gonna be here this weekend. We're gonna be here this weekend. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and I had to ask, like, am I like, a permanent fixture type thing or whatever? And it was like, yeah. You didn't know? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't want to assume. I didn't know. You know what I mean? So it came off like, this kid is with all these old guys, you know what I'm saying? So I learned so much just from being in that arena with Ron playing bass and Dwight Sills playing guitar and Ron Ronhart playing keys. And it was just that. And then of course Richard playing saxophone, So eventually that was the unit,
Yeah.
that was the unit. And this was the first time that I had actually did any kind of like traveling travel. Like my experiences before, as far as a traveling musician, was the furthest the furthest I had gone. I mean, I had covered all of New England, from Maine, Vermont on down to Connecticut, you know. And I think the furthest that I had gone was New York, So for me, that was travel.
Hmm.
And that traveling was by van. It wasn't by plane.
Right.
So my first time going to Cali was with Richard, and I had never flown like that far before, and I was nervous then, because I was like, man, this is totally uncharted territory. But I had a feeling of comfort because, you know, Ron was right there. Ron was right there with me. So, and eventually over time, like, you know, not only like mentorship, not only the role of mentorship, it's almost like he took on the role, and I used to always say it all the time, and I still do it. He's like my musical pops. You know what I'm saying? Because of the way he, took me under his wing and looked out for me.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like more than, it was like more than just music. You know, like we would sometimes at the crib. I mean, we would just, throw some dogs on the grill or something like that, or just ride around the city, and listening to music or whatever, just talking or whatever. So it wasn't always just in the studio. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of took on that role of like, you know, just that musical pops. You know what I mean?
How important is mentorship in the lives of musicians, like those that aspire to be professionals? Even at this point, you're already a professional musician. Technically, you've gotten this gig. This is like your first major gig. You're on a plane going to California. They've told you you have the role now. How important is the mentorship that you were getting from Ronnie at that time? But just in general for musicians, if they have a mentor, why should they latch on to that?
Well, wisdom first of all. In my personal opinion, because I was just like, I was a sponge, just picking up, everything, just, not only musicianship, but just the way you communicate with people, the way you carry yourself, and all that stuff kind of goes into what I started picking up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just that professional persona,
Hmm.
that professional aura that you carry with yourself everywhere you go. And one thing I learned from Ron, and the rest of the cats was, you're only as good as your last gig. You know what I mean? That was literally the first time that I had heard that, was like from him, like, you're only
Right.
as good as your last gig. And I was like, yo, it's kind of a crazy statement, but it makes sense. You know, Never heard it before, but I was like, wow, that makes sense. Meaning, each gig that you do, you want to always give it your best.
Hmm.
You know, Sometimes your best may not be the absolute best, but give it your best. So that way when you leave the table, you know, you feel yourself like, okay, I did the best that I could do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So um, I would say mentorship in that perspective, I believe it goes further than the music itself. And I feel like it should. I feel like it should go further than the music, um, because I can only say that because of the mentors that I've had. It wasn't just all about the music. It was like life lessons that I was learning as well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
So let's fast forward a little bit. You've basically left. You've made the transition from Berkeley College of Music down to Atlanta. You've connected with Ronnie Garrett, who has quickly become a mentor. He's exposed you to some people and some opportunities, such as the Star Search opportunity. This is also, we kind of just breezed over this for a minute, but there's actually I'm assuming that's your first foray into the music publishing world. Is that correct as
Yeah.
well? Right.
Yeah.
So making basically the opportunity to earn, we weren't just making music for Star Search. If that gets placed, what do musicians have to expect if they get a placement on Star Search or American Idol or anything else on TV, film, as many people aspire to do? What's the opposite side of that? What's the admin side of that like?
Well, I know for me that I think that was one of the first times I heard about like ASCAP, BMI, and everything like that.
Mhm.
And he quickly said, "Look, you need to go ahead on it and get signed up."
Sign up.
You know, he was like, "I'm BMI." I know. I think a few of his cats at the time. Yeah, Rex, I think, is with ASCAP. He was like, "You should go with ASCAP," because I know Rex is with ASCAP and is really great over there, whatever, da, 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 da. But he was like, "You need to sign up so that way you can get royalties." And I was like, "Huh, I like the way that sounds." You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
So it's not just one check on the front end. There's potential checks on the back end.
Oh, right. You know what I'm saying? Not only just from the client, but it's like every time things are getting played or whatever,
Hmm.
they're clocking that,
Yes.
and that's when I learned about that. I was like, oh man, yeah. Whenever you do something, register it with the company that you're with. If you're with BMI, if you're with ASCAP, register it with that company so they can keep track as well.
Hmm.
So that way you can get your statements, your checks in the mail, you know. And he definitely turned me on to a lot of that stuff, man, that I didn't know anything about,
Hmm.
So once again, that's one of those, things of just being a mentor or just
Yeah.
having a mentor that, if you're not thinking about those things, there's somebody there that can bring those things to your attention.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely.
Especially because of the fact that, Ron's been doing this since he was like, I don't know, like 19, 20. He started out with Donald Byrd and everything like that. So his experience in the musical world is like, it's up there.
Hmm.
So, when he's talking about certain things like that, I'm like, I got elephant ears. I'm listening, because I don't know anything about it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
his experiences, has definitely, honestly, his experiences has honestly enabled me to skip quite a few steps. You know what I'm saying? And just being around him and being, like I said, under his wing and just soaking up so much stuff. Sometimes it wouldn't even be a conversation. Sometimes it would just be me literally being a fly on the wall.
Right.
You know
Listening,
what I mean?
watching, observing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And just paying attention, and just checking everything out. You know what I mean? We were driving around one time and like I said earlier about Tyler Perry, he had met him in like '03, '02, something like that on the cruise. And somehow or another, we ended up meeting Tyler, meeting Tyler in the drive-through of a Wendy's. He was ordering some food. It's so funny. He was ordering some food at the drive-through, and I think he had called Ron or something like that. And we pulled up beside him. I think at the time, like I think Ron had like a Lexus or something like that, and we pulled up beside his Bentley, and we were like, yo, this is crazy. Okay, like he's looking down at us. Hey guys, how you doing? How you doing? So somehow or another, he was just like, yeah, I got to come over. I got some ideas that I want to run past you. And I'm like, and I'm now, mind you, I had never heard of Tyler Perry until like just before I left Berkeley. Um, the the musical director at the church that I was playing at Union Baptist in Cambridge, um, he was having some type of get together or whatever at his house, and we were watching. Oh man, this is crazy. It's all coming back to me now. We were watching Tyler Perry's Medea's class reunion. You know what I'm saying? And I was tripped out about that. I was like, yo, this is actually really funny. And it was this one particular person, Terrell Carter, who sang this song that was like, I never heard anybody in my life sing like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, who is this cat? This is crazy. You know, the way he could control his voice and everything like that. I was like, yo, I don't know who he is, but he's incredible. He's amazing. So um mind you, like I said, I just learned of Tyler Perry. So when I saw him in person in his car, I was like, that sure is him. That is him. That's him right there. There you go. There you go.
And he's ordering at Wendy's right now.
And he's ordering at Wendy's. That's him. He's getting a 5-piece right now. That is him. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I was like, oh, that's dope. You know, I just seen him, you know, and I didn't know, how big he was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When he came over to the crib, he was explaining to me and Ron about a movie that he was working on. It was called Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And he said that he sat us down. We talked for a minute, you know. And I say we like I was talking. I wasn't doing no talking. It was them two talking.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm just sitting there because I'm still like maybe like 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I don't know nothing about what they talk about. You know, I know music though, you know. So, you know, he was explaining to us about how, you know, he had been to so many different companies, you know, from Sony to Universal to Paramount, all these other movie companies, and they all turned him down. He was like, they all turned me down. So I'm gonna take my own money and I'm gonna produce my own movie, and I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna use my house. I'm gonna use all of my people, and I'm gonna do it myself. You know, and in my mind, I'm like, man, that's a lot. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So what didn't dawn on me was that he had already been doing this for years and years and years. So mind you, like I said, I was just learning about him literally the year before I moved down, and he left us with all of his plays, you know, on DVD. He's just gave us a stack of his plays on DVD, and I was like, oh my god, oh this is crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Because Tyler's been in this. I don't know what year this is, but I think he started his plays around '98, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And,
so he's about maybe 5-6 years in around this point, maybe more.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's that guy. You know what I mean? And so in my mind, I said, "Oh man, that's really cool that that I was able to meet him, like shake his hand face to face, and just like kind of converse and everything like that." And because of Ron's relationship and because of the way he carries himself and everything like that, I was able to meet him. And we were a part of his first movie. We were part of 3 different ones, but that was his first one. We was able to do Diary of a Mad Black Woman, Medea's Family Reunion, and Daddy's Little Girls. And just being able to be there and be on set and see how he directs, I had never seen that before, and I'm thinking to myself, every now and again, I'll be like, man, I probably would have never seen something like this in like Butler. You know what I mean? Like if I would have stayed, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm sitting there just watching, like, this is real movie directing here. Like, this is crazy. And it really, really didn't hit me until it came on the screen, the silver screen, and it was real. And I actually saw my name in the credits. I said, oh my God.
Wow.
Ma.
Right.
I'm on TV, Mom. I'm on TV. You know what I'm saying? So it really didn't hit home until I saw that. It was like, okay, we had done the work and everything like that. But it was like when I saw it, it was like, oh man. You know what I'm saying? So, taking it back to the whole mentorship thing, it was like he was showing me the game while we was playing the game.
Right.
While we were, it was like player coach. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
while he was on the court with me, shooting hoops with me, he was still coaching me.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Showing me the real game in real time. I was playing with Will Downing as well. I forgot where we were, but it was a theater full of people. And I ended up losing the time, the meter, with however the hits were going or whatever. I ended up losing the meter. And I was like, I said, "Oh my God, this I can't believe this is happening." You know. And eventually Will just Will motioned back to me and was just like, just cut. Just cut. We just gonna end this with the keys and everything else. He was like, just cut. And you talking about somebody embarrassed. I feel so bad because what rung in my head was you're only as good as your last gig.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
oh no,
Right.
this is it. And I remember I got back to the hotel and I called Ron, and I told him, man, I said, hey man, I messed up, man. I messed up. He was like, well, what happened? And I told him what happened. I'm on the phone, like I'm in tears because the music for me it's just in my heart, man. It's who I
Yeah.
am. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
You're
feel good.
musically hitched at this point. I mean, there's no turning back at
Yeah,
this point.
exactly, man. I'm musically hitched, man. I'm fully in. I'm fully involved. And I remember explaining everything to Ron, man, and I ended up tearing up because I hurt myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like, man, why did I do that? How did I do that? But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's what Ron told me too. He was like, it's not as bad as you think, whatever, da 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 da. And we moved on from that. And that was what it was. But there was one particular time I was coming back from doing a gig with Will Downing, and I literally just landed in ATL back here at Jackson Hartsfield. And um this guy named Courtney Carter, he at that time he was I want to say he was yeah, at that time he was the road manager for A Marie. Now prior to that he was a part of the management team for Tyler. And that's where that connection was. So Courtney obviously knew Ron because Ron was MDing for Tyler and everything like that. And Ron and a few others was telling Courtney about me or whatever. So Courtney just out of the blue called me, and literally I hadn't even gotten off the plane yet, and he said, "Yo, what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow?" And I was like, "Uh, unpacking. I literally just got back, and it's probably maybe like 3 p.m. or something like that." And he was like, "Cool, I need you to get on a plane tonight, or tomorrow at the latest, because I need you to do this tour." And I was like, "Tour?" I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Well, what tour is this?" And he was like, "Don't worry about it. It's a new artist." He was like, "You heard of A Marie?" And I was like, "A Marie?" It's like, "Nah, I don't think I've heard of her." And he was like, "Well, just look her up." He was like, "You've heard her song before. You've already heard her song before." He was like, "You know, song. It's just one thing that got me tripping." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that song. I know
Yeah.
that song." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool, 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 cool." And I was like, "So it's a tour?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's a tour." I was like, "Cool." And he told me, he said, when you get back home, just go kind of like listen to some of her music and everything like that. And I'm gonna send you some of her music, if you don't have it already. I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So I ain't think nothing of it. So um, when I got home, started unpacking to repack, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be flying out that night or the next day. Ultimately, it was the next day. So I was flying to, ironically, I was flying to Raleigh. I was flying to North Carolina.
Hmm.
So the show was at Walnut Creek. And when I got there, when I landed at RDU, there was somebody there with my name and everything like that. And I got there, got in the limo, and in my mind, I'm like, "Oh man, this is sweet."
Yeah. Home
You
sweet
know,
home, right?
right? I'm like, "This is kind of cool." I ain't mad at this, you know. And meanwhile, prior to that, um, I was actually making my transition from Richard Elliott to Will Downing at that time too. Will wasn't doing as much, but I was remembering how Ron was able to, make his transition from Richard to Tyler. So it was kind of the same type thing for me. And in my mind, I said, okay, cool. This is a tour. I'd never been on a tour before, so I don't know how to pack for it. All he said to me was pack for like a week, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, cool, no problem. So I packed for a week. Big mistake, but I get to RDU, and I get in the limo, and whoever the driver was like, here's a DVD player. I was told that you need to watch this on the way to the venue, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm holding this DVD player or whatever, and I'm just watching the show, and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on. I'm just taking mental notes and everything like that. Meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, cool. When I get there, I can meet the other musicians and I can bounce off of them. Whoever the MD is and everything like that. Just hey, let me know what I'm doing. Whoever the keyboard player is, bass player, whatever. Let me know where I fit in this thing. You know what
Was
I
this
mean?
DVD of show material, or was this like a recent performance of hers, or was this?
Yeah, it was like was it show? Yeah, it was. It was like a practice slash show. So it wasn't like of the actual show.
Rehearsal, maybe.
Um, yeah, it was like, yeah, because I think at that time they had only done one show. So I'm trying to remember if it was a video of that show or if it was a rehearsal before that. But it was something along those lines. And so I asked the driver, because I know we're in Raleigh, and that's all I know is that the show is in Raleigh. Now mind you, I don't know anything about headliner and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay. So we're pulling up to Walnut Creek. So I'm like, man, the last time I was at Walnut Creek, I was with um the message, you know, and I remember telling F and telling Kevin because Liddell Abrams was playing for Karen Clark at the time. And he was playing I got a right to praise him. And the way he was playing it, it was it was like, yo, it was amazing. He was like the guy that I wanted to play like that. I was like, Kev, do you see that? Like he had the gloves, like he was so aggressive and just so passionate. Like when he played, I was like, yo, this is I want to be able to play like that. Just that energy, that to it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when I think of Walnut Creek, I always think of Liddell Abrams, and that that being a change as far as like how I approached, drumming and everything like that for
It was a
me.
paradigm shift, basically.
Yeah, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So when we get there, we're pulling up to Walnut Creek and I'm having like, a deja vu moment of like, oh, this is wow, you know, and I'm seeing all these buses and I'm like, hey man, well, who else is on this show? And the dude didn't know. He's just a driver.
Mhm.
He didn't know. And so we get through the gate and everything like that, and he drives me straight up to the bus. And um, as I'm getting out, I'm taking my suitcase and stuff out and putting it on, and I see one of the buses is wrapped and it says Destiny Fulfilled Tour, and I'm like, Destiny Fulfilled Tour, and I'm seeing on the side, and I'm like, is that Destiny's Child? And I was like, oh, for real? I said, oh, okay. Wait a minute now. So okay, so I'm gonna see Beyonce now. So so I'm like, I'm trying to keep it all inside because I'm like, okay, I
Right.
gotta I gotta focus because I'm only here um right now because that's what it was at that time. It was like I'm only here to do this one show, you know. But he told me to pack for a week, so I wasn't sure what it was that he was trying to prep me for or whatever. So I get on the bus and I meet the girls. It's four dancers, and I meet Lenny, who's at that time was her manager. Um, and I meet A. Marie. She comes out. And I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? It's good to meet you. you know, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, oh, this is really happening. This isn't, I was like, pinch myself. Let me make sure I'm not dreaming. This is a real thing right now.
Right.
So we sit in the front of the bus. They pull out another maybe I think it was a computer at that time or something like that. But she's going over the show with me. Mind you, it's only 20 minutes. And we got 45 minutes before the show. So we're literally going over the show. I ain't had no rehearsal with her, nothing like that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, cool. The most important things is beginnings and endings. In the middle, I can figure that part out. But the beginnings and endings of these songs, you know. And the great thing about that situation was it wasn't like they were like arrangements. They were edits of the songs, which was like, thank God, you know what I mean? So like I said, I sat there with her, paid attention to beginnings and endings, and was like, okay, cool. And she was like, yeah, and that's it. And I was like, okay.
And it's 45 minutes before the show starts?
This is like 45 minutes before the show.
And how many songs were in the set for that night?
I can't even remember. I know it was 20 minutes worth. So she was like, yeah, cool. So, and that's it. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, okay. And the way the whole show started was, it started with me. It was nothing else. It started with me. And I was like, cool. Now, she's cool. Now, let me go find these other musicians so that way I can figure out, like, hey, guy, like, what are we doing? So I go to Courtney and I ask him, I said, hey, man, hey, so where's, are the other musicians already on stage? Or like, because I know we open up the whole show and everything. Are they already set, or like, you know, where are they at? And he was like, what you mean? I said, well, Courtney, the other musicians, like, where are they at? He was like, you talking about for Destiny Child? I said, no, I'm talking about for us. Like who the people that I'm playing with? He was like, ain't no other musicians, it's you.
Wow.
I said, hold on now. I said, Courtney, what are you talking about? He said, it's no other musicians, it's just you.
Wow.
A. Marie and the dancers. He was like, what other musicians are you talking about? And I was like, that's when my heart said,
Ag, you're it.
Right. I was like, oh my God. Oh, this is crazy. In front of my home state?
Right.
You gonna do this to me today? I was like, this is crazy.
Supporting this podcast is easy. Just hit the subscribe button. See you on the next episode.